today I'm going to teach you two new things. One, I'm going to teach you how to mix your own black, and two, I'm going to teach you how to paint a black background. Hey friends, I'm Lana and welcome to my studio. First, I would kind of like to know how you're doing during this pandemic. So are you getting a little stir crazy? Are you getting things accomplished? Leave a comment below and let me know how you're doing. So for this video, you're going to need two things. First thing you're going to need is some sepia watercolor paint. And the second thing you're going to need is some indigo watercolor paint. So two optional items that I have used during the making of this video and of this painting. One is permanent orange and a palette knife. You can get this at any watercolor supplier. You're getting a little glimpse of my palette here, which as you can see is not necessarily clean. I don't tend to clean my palette that much between paintings, but for you guys in this video, I cleaned it for you. Now, to mix my black, I do it directly on my palette, and I do use a palette knife. You don't need a palette knife if you want to make smaller batches, but I like to make a lot and just leave it right on my palette. And I have a tendency to put just a little bit more indigo. I like a little bit cooler black. And this is the hard part. I'm just going to mix these together. And guys, I'm here to tell you, that's pretty much it. What I will do is I'll try to push this as much into a pile. I'm going to let this dry, but I'm not going to let that go to waste. You might be able to do an entire painting with just that. Okay guys, now that we've learned the basics, we're going to take the knowledge that we just learned and we're going to put it to use on an actual painting. To apply your masking fluid first, use a small, cheap brush loaded with soap. I use a hand soap. I personally use Paul Jackson's masking fluid. Apply your masking fluid to create a dam. This will create a hard edge protecting your still life from your paint. You can also use masking tape for larger areas if you like. I'm using a 1-inch brush by Neptune. I'll first put down water with a tiny bit of orange in it so that it's easier for me to see, and then I come back and lay in a layer of permanent orange. I use Daniel Smith. This gives my dark background a bit of a warmer feel in the finished product, and also the cool blue of the black that we mixed and the orange will make, anyone know, it's going to make a neutral tint. Now we're going to lay in our initial wash of our homemade black, and this is going to look pretty muddy at this stage, but we're working to build up our color. Our first couple initial layers are going to be laid down wet on dry. Now we'll let our first wash dry, and it's really important that we let our paint dry between our layers so that we don't create any blooms. Now you should know that there are lots of different combinations you can use to make black paint, but this is what I use and prefer. And a shout out to Carrie Waller, who taught me this when I was having problems with my truck painting. She taught me how to do this. I'll drop a link to Carrie's website in the description below. I've done a great deal of this black background. I'm pretty close to being done. I need to put another coat on, but I need to do one other thing. I want to have that shadow drop down into some of these license plates. If I do that separate, I'm going to have more of a hard line. So what I would like to do on this final, which I think will be my final coat, I would like to cover all of this and then come on down into here. To do that, I have to save some highlights. And because if I come down and do a wash, I'm going to lose those. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to use some masking fluid. And I'm going to go along here and I'm going to mask any highlights in any of these license plates. This area. So I have all of this area masked off, just around some of these letters here. What I'm going to do here is now I'm going to do a wash. This is almost to the edge up here. I kind of use that as a cutoff point, so I'll do this section and I'll do this section separately. And I'm going to wet this whole thing down. Now, before you saw me working on this a lot with wet on dry, but here I'm going to do wet on wet because I want that water to run in there. And I'm probably not going to make it much darker than that. You can see where that masking is resisting. And the reason why I'm doing this is because you want to keep from having a hard edge. So I just clean my brush out and I come back over here and I'm going to soften up. I see a hard edge. What I want is I want this to run. I don't want it to sit there flat. I want to have it run just a little bit on me. And I've come over my black. Once again, I'm doing some hashes just so I don't have a hard line. I like to hash back and forth a little bit. If you want your painting to be transparent, you want to leave a little bit of, you don't want it to be like solid black. One thing I did learn from my last painting of the trucks, which I'll show it on my screen, don't finish with the black background, start with the black background. And I didn't start with the background because I was a little nervous about doing it, and you know how you kind of put things off that you don't know what to do. And so here I have this beautiful painting. I get to the end and now I'm terrified that I'm going to screw it up, and I did, and I had to scrub it out. So I've learned if I start a little bit sooner, if I screw it up, I can start over a little bit easier. I'm going to leave this. I'm going to let this dry. I'm not going to touch it anymore. That's the important part. It's one of the important things, is learning when to stop touching it. Now we're going to let that sit, and we're going to let the gravity and we're going to let the paint do all the magic itself. So guys, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe, hit the notification button so you know when our next video is going to be out. Leave a comment and a like and share with your friends because we really, really appreciate that. Thanks guys. Have a good day. So optionally, I also have